of the keys to victory for the Denver Broncos against the New York Jets as they prepare to take on an international game early Sunday morning at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Did the Colorado Avalanche prove a pretty significant point that should pay dividends later in their NHL season? And just how much is on the line for the Colorado Buffaloes as they prepare to take on 21st ranked Iowa State tomorrow afternoon? All things to come on today's rundown, but we begin with a shout out to our friends at Denver Regenerative Medicine. Guys, if weight loss has been a struggle for you, it's time for something real. At Denver Regenerative Medicine, they use full-strength GLP-1 medications with doctor oversight. You can start today with a free consultation and get real results for under $300 a month. Want to kick today's show off with an acknowledgement of something that I think is going to pay dividends for the Colorado Avalanche as they continue to embark on a strong start to the 2025 NHL season. And that is that they showed against Utah in their home opener that they have the capacity and the capability on both ends of the ice to win the ugly ones. You can have pretty wins like you did in LA against the Kings in the season opener, where they cruised to a 4-1 victory that was really never in doubt after about, midway through the first period into the second period. Then you have a game like last night, where at home, in front of an energized crowd, kicking off the home opener of their 30th NHL season, the Colorado Avalanche found themselves with a 1-0 lead before an ugly second period that was kind of sloppy and grimy and back and forth for both teams, ultimately entering the third period tied 1-1. Well, shortly after that, into the third period, Nathan MacKinnon scores a power play goal that puts the Avs up 2-1, and they're able to hold on behind a fantastic 32-save performance from backup goalie Scott Wedgwood. And boy, does it feel like the days of goaltender woes and ripping your hair out if you're an Avalanche fan over the dismay and the distress between the pipes from Alexander Georgiev and Justus Annunen. And even, to be honest with you, going back to the Stanley Cup season, where, yes, the combination of Pavel Francouz and Darcy Kemper allowed the Avalanche just enough to hold things down in net to win their third Stanley Cup in franchise history. It wasn't an easy or relaxing ride. I mean, even in that playoff run alone, you had Darcy Kemper getting poked in the eye with a stick, having to wear an eye patch, and Frankie having to come in for stints during multiple series. And with that hoisting of Lord Stanley's Cup, Darcy Kemper and Pavel Francouz maybe became the worst goaltending tandem by save percentage to ever win an NHL championship. Doesn't feel like that's going to be the case if and when the Avs return to the Stanley Cup final and hopefully host their fourth Lord Stanley Cup in franchise history, because with Mackenzie Blackwood sidelined with a hip issue that shouldn't be lingering too deep into the start of the NHL season, Scott Wedgwood appears poised and ready to hold things down until the other half of the woodshed is ready to get things going again. Back-to-back one-goal games for Scott Wedgwood. As I mentioned, 32 saves against Utah to grind out a 2-1 win. And our own Will Peterson, who joined the show yesterday, caught up with the Avs backup goalie after the game, where he gave the view of the performance through his eyes.
Tough play on the goal, but just knuckled on me and hard to read when they jammed it that hard. But yeah, I mean, for the whole night, second period, I made some saves that we needed, and it's kind of my job, right? Get the puck on the net and give the guys a chance to find whatever lull they're in to get out of, and that was a little bit of a second period for us, but responded early in the third, came out, got a lead, and we did what we needed to do to keep them off the board, and they had some chances, but it wasn't too much that was blatant. It was a little bit of back pressure, and what they had kind of limited with the amount of pressure we were able to keep on them. So I made my job easy just to keep sealed and no holes, and it worked out.
Like a pitcher in Major League Baseball, like a kicker in the NFL, a goaltender in hockey is such a cerebrally dependent position. It's such a quirky role for a player to have to take on game in and game out, because the stakes are so high and the mistakes are so magnified that it can really kind of create a snowball effect when things aren't going well, the way we saw in previous seasons between the pipes for the Avs. And then it can also provide an opposite and positive snowballing effect when things are going well and when there's an even keel mental approach for that player at that position. And right now it feels like both goaltenders, but specifically Scott Wedgwood for the start of this 2025 season, are relaxed, they're settled, they're confident, and they're comfortable with the players they have in front of them defensively, with the offensive capability that the Colorado Avalanche continue to provide and was certainly on display in LA, a little bit less so, but in a clutch sense against the Utah Mammoth. And that is going to be something that bodes so significantly well for the Avs as they continue to try to keep their championship window alive. And all of the moves that general manager Chris MacFarland made at the trade deadline, and even before that in January, where he shipped off Mikko Rantanen, one of the biggest trades in Colorado sports history, have had time to gel, have had time to coalesce, and are now entering a 2025 campaign where all of the washing machine and the rigmarole has settled, and these guys look focused and dialed in and ready to make a legitimate run at the Western Conference and at a Stanley Cup final. There is something, however, that I think is continuing in a 2-game sample size, which I will acknowledge is a 2-game sample size in 2025, but it feels very familiar, and we touched on it yesterday, Will Peterson and I did, about this Colorado Avalanche team that I think is going to have to improve if they are going to avoid a similar fate to the one that they suffered last season with a first-round exit at the hands of the physical and big and experienced and disciplined Dallas Stars, now featuring Mikko Rantanen. And that is, they have got to be better on the power play. 2 for 10 through the first 2 games of the NHL season for a 20% conversion rate is just simply not going to cut it. And worse yet, we're talking about 2 for 10 on 10 total shots on the power play. The Avalanche, who by and large offensively in terms of an identity for their team, are well-versed and excellent at putting the puck on the net, at putting pressure in the O zone, working the puck around, and finding high danger and high quality scoring opportunities. They are. They have one of the best top-line defensive pairings in the National Hockey League in Cale Makar and Devon Toews, and especially with Cale Makar, from an offensive-minded perspective, giving you a full 200-foot player, a dual weapon there that just seems to disappear on the power plays as a whole. On the power play, the Avs aren't and haven't been able to generate consistent shots on goal and put pressure in that offensive zone. 10 shots on 10 power play opportunities through 2 games. I don't understand quite yet why the skills that the Colorado Avalanche have built an identity around, especially offensively, seem to go away when a man advantage is presented on a power play. I think there are times where maybe they get a little bit too cute. They start moving around with the puck in ways that they shouldn't, and they get away from just utilizing, in a more basic sense, the skating, speed, and shot-creating ability that their power play unit, which is composed of some of the best players in hockey that exist on their top line, possess in a natural sense. Plenty of time to figure it out. They've got 80 more of these auditions before the postseason starts to really get things ironed out and work out some of those kinks. And they certainly could be working from a lower floor to start the 2025 season, as I do think the Colorado Avalanche are an excellent, excellent hockey team, and something that through 2 games I can already feel pretty confident is going to be an absolute wagon for NHL teams to stop that offensive attack when it's clicking on all cylinders, because the depth scoring ability from their top line down to even their 4th line, with the presence of Logan O'Connor currently sidelined until about Christmas, gives me so much more confidence that this team can emulate the mold that was created in the 2021-2022 playoff and cup run, where the depth scoring ability from the players that were acquired in the middle of the season leading up to the deadline made the Avs almost unstoppable, regardless of who was on the ice, and just this wave after wave onslaught of puck movement that, just from an opposing goaltender perspective, you had to just kind of hold your hands up and hope for the best. I think offensively, at even strength, this team possesses that capability, but if they can't figure out a way to replicate that success on a power play, when again, they have a man advantage, it's going to create similar scenes and situations to what we saw in the postseason last year against Dallas, where a bigger and more physical team was able to work the boards, cycle the puck around, keep it out of the O zone for the Avalanche, and prevent them from doing what they do best. Shifting gears to the Colorado Buffaloes, who have maybe on paper one of the bigger matchups on the remainder of their schedule, with 21st ranked Iowa State coming to Boulder to take on the Buffs at Folsom Field. But I think the significance of this game goes a little bit deeper than that, because the Colorado Buffaloes sitting at 2-4 without a win in Big 12 conference play, without a win over a Power 4 opponent so far in the 2025 season, may be fighting for the remainder of the trajectory of their season tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. when things kick off up at Folsom. And even though it's become evident to me that the Colorado Buffaloes do not have a capable quality starting quarterback in Caden Salter or anyone beneath Caden Salter up to this point, and even though from a coaching perspective, with the game management aspect of Coach Prime, the offensive capability and game planning with Pat Shurmur, and defensively with Robert Livingston, the way things have kind of been inconsistent and maybe seen some regression in certain areas year to year, this is not an out-of-reach game for CU. It's really not. And if they are able to pull off a top 25 upset in conference play to earn their first Power 4 and first conference win of the 2025 season, it can keep the runway lights on for this team to reach 6 wins by the end of the 2025 campaign, become bowl eligible, and at least salvage something of a season that began with significantly higher expectations. Now, does that feel a little bit like kissing your sister and maybe not as, or maybe a little bit hollow compared to what we thought and hoped this team would be? Maybe. But it also feels like a realistic outcome for a team that lost an NFL caliber quarterback in Shedeur Sanders, that lost a two-way playing Heisman Trophy winner in Travis Hunter, several players in the wide receiver room who are of NFL caliber. The Buffaloes, if they're going to find a way to stay competitive and potentially pull off the upset against Iowa State, are going to have to, frankly, just get back to basics. They're going to have to take what the defense gives them. They're going to have to take care of the football, something that they didn't do last week, as Caden Salter throws 3 interceptions and puts the Buffs in a position where they build a 14-point lead and then lose by 14 by the time the clocks hit 0. Kind of a historic turn and flipping of the table for Colorado Buffaloes in terms of their program history. Cincinnati did what the Colorado Buffaloes are going to attempt to do last week. They laid the foundation and the blueprint, owning the trenches like the Bearcats did, putting Rocco Becht, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, in a position where he's unable to stay comfortable. He's unable to have time to make decisions and pick apart a secondary that has been picked on, if you're the Colorado Buffaloes, in recent weeks, and preventing the ground game, which has found ways in multiple consecutive seasons now in critical moments to be a backbreaker for CU. Cincinnati was able to own the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball and keep pace and keep competitive to allow Iowa State from dictating the pace of play and dictate the way that Iowa State has to respond to an opposing offense. I'm not saying that I have overwhelming confidence that CU can do it, but I'm also not saying that the 2-4 team that we've seen snatch defeat from the hands and the jaws of victory isn't capable of a win against a ranked conference opponent, despite the fact that they have not shown the ability up to this point in the season to make that happen. Dallin Hayden and Micah Welch in a banged-up running back room are going to have to make a difference. They're going to have to control the game on the ground, rely on the big uglies up front to be able to push the pace and push the line of scrimmage, creating more manageable late down situations and prevent defenses from exploiting a limited passing ability with Caden Salter and keying in on a loaded box with a quarterback who has been hesitant at times to use his legs, but still has the capability to get out and make plays in space. The Denver Broncos have maybe a little bit less of a high-profile matchup with them in front of them at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London as they prepare to take on the winless Jets. That being said, in the same way that I don't think CU can just be totally overlooked as a pushover against a top 25 team that plays in the Big 12, I don't want to be overly dismissive of the New York Jets. Things have not gone well for New York and gangrene in the Aaron Glenn, Justin Fields era through 5 weeks. They have yet to win a game. They are one of the worst passing offenses in the NFL, bottom 4. But let's not forget that Justin Fields has beaten the Broncos multiple times in recent years with multiple different teams. He beat the Broncos as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers when we were robbed of yet another opportunity, like it seems we will be this year, of a Russell Wilson revenge game as Russ got hurt with a hamstring injury. And Fields in week 2 at Empower Field at Mile High came in and beat Sean Payton's Denver Broncos. Justin Fields also had a productive game beating the Broncos as a member of the Chicago Bears in recent years. And so a mobile quarterback who has the running ability and the scramble ability of Justin Fields, regardless of whether or not his arm talent poses a significant threat to a decent and vaunted Broncos secondary, presents a challenge for any NFL team to have to work around. If I was to draw up keys to victory for the Denver Broncos this Sunday against the Jets, they would be threefold. One, similar to what I talked about with the Colorado Buffaloes and Iowa State, Denver has got to control the line of scrimmage. The run game, with J.K. Dobbins being the primary engine as a top 5 rushing offense, number 4 specifically in the NFL, they are going to have to keep that going, even against a lowly Jets team, if they're going to avoid upset alert in London. Because the Jets, and this is where the control of the line of scrimmage flips to the other side of the ball, the Jets actually have a better rushing offense than the Denver Broncos, headed by Breece Hall, their high draft pick from a handful of years ago, as they are the 3rd ranked rushing offense in the NFL. So Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, and John Franklin Myers, who specifically on that right side, I think, could be poised for a big day, as the majority of the pressure that Justin Fields and the offense takes from a defense comes from the right side of their offensive line. That's the weaker side. It's going to have to come twofold on both sides of the ball. Secondarily, they have to take care of the football. It was one thing when Bo Nix threw a bad end zone interception against the Cincinnati Bengals team that never had a chance after the first 90 seconds of football in prime time on Monday night. The Jets have turned the ball over 8 times through 5 games, and their defense has yet to force a turnover. The Broncos cannot be the slump buster that allows that Jets defense to get back into a rhythm and get back into a groove, because if this game gets close, a team that's 0-5 with less and less to play for as each quarter ticks by, and a team like the Broncos, who still in my mind and in their minds have a lot to play for, creates a tightness and a dynamic that I think would be nervous and nerve-wracking for us, the fans, and the coaches and players as the game starts to wear on. Similarly to how, even though 14 points doesn't really feel like letting a team hang around, the Philadelphia Eagles last week, allowing the Broncos to just stay within striking distance and ultimately chip away at a lead before scoring 18 unanswered points to beat the defending Super Bowl champions in Philadelphia. The Broncos cannot allow that, even in a neutral site setting, to happen to them at the hands of this Jets team. And number 3, find early down success. The run game is going to be a huge part of that offensively, and defensively, preventing early down success for the New York Jets will be key to allow the defense to pin their ears back and get after Justin Fields, containing him in the pocket, forcing him to beat them with his arm, which he has been unable to do up to this point in the season. And offensively, opening up Sean's playbook. I actually, you know what? I should say closing the playbook a little bit, in the sense of it's not 3rd and 7 and 3rd and 8, and it's pretty significant and obvious what Denver is going to have to do to convert. Keeping things in the 3rd and manageable is going to be a significant boon for this Broncos offense, and allow Sean Payton to utilize his playbook in a way that's not telegraphed, not obvious, and more comfortable for the offense. We will see how it all tends to come together and coalesce. The Colorado Avalanche have a big game against the familiar face that knocked them out of the postseason last year in the Dallas Stars, coming up on Saturday. That will be the same day that Colorado finds out what they're made of, because if they lose this game, I think the season takes a significant turn in the wrong direction, and winning this game provides a little bit more wind in the sail of a ship that is just trying to get out of the harbor up there in Boulder. And then for the Broncos, avoiding the trap game, which, as I said to Will Peterson here on this show and on The Drive with Zach By and Philip Lindsay, doesn't feel like a trap game to me, but building and stacking the momentum and not undoing all of the good grace that was brought by beating the Eagles, who lost to the Giants in a pretty significant way last night in Thursday Night Football. Not undoing all of that goodwill and keeping the momentum pushing forward in an AFC West landscape where they're finding themselves in favorable position, and an AFC landscape that looks as unique as it has in a number of years, is going to be something that I think we walk away from this coming weekend when I check in with all of you and James Palmer on Monday. So until then, we will sign off for the day, and we will catch you on Monday at noon after a wild weekend of Colorado sports for the next rundown.
I do what I love what I do. Second nature to put